Good evening, everyone. Today we're going to be doing a lesson on FFA history where we're wondering how in the tarnation did we get here? So we're going to be learning how to better present a lesson on FFA history that's more engaging to your students. So the first thing we need to identify is who are we teaching? And the answer is going to be, of course, students, but specifically survey bag students who tend to be in grades 8 through 12, ranging from ages 13 to 19. So, a little bit about the class. It's a survey of agriculture class, meaning it's an introduction to agriculture. You're going to learn some history. You're going to learn about careers in the industry, the impact that has on our modern everyday lives, as well as some of the different and diverse industries you may not consider to be agricultural. Just some of those career areas might be production ag mech, sales and services, processing, and then like recreation, just to name a few. So, just like with every good thing, there is a problem, and what we found to be the problem is in FFA history, you can very easily be teaching zombies because students become disengaged. They're in it for the short term recall, just memorizing it to get done with the test. So they're going to do this step right here, which is repeat, just so they can get to that test and be done. And if they decide later that they need that history, it's with short term memory, which is not what we want. We want them to be able to use this in the future. So let's look at the original approach of how most teachers, and specifically the one we interviewed, approached it. And that was by using PowerPoint and an FFA manual. It became a death by PowerPoint where they were presenting their PowerPoint and students were simply going in their notes, following along, jotting down some information, possibly if they had the FFA manual like they should have, highlighting in the manual. But neither of those are really effective. So, what we need to do as teachers is think, what do we have to work with? In this specific class, we have a projector which can be displayed on a whiteboard so that you can write on what you're projecting. So, like a fill in the blank would work. They have projector screens. Everyone has Microsoft Office as well as the Google apps because everyone, including the teachers and students, have Chromebooks in addition to just regular school computers. So, it's time that we make a change. Times are evolving, so should our lessons. Some things in technology approaches that we're going to consider is Quizlet, which is a studying software that typically is thought of to use flashcards, but it has a lot more resources than you might think. Poplet, which allows us to create concept maps, timelines in a fun and interactive way, and they are very attractive displays too. Google Sites, which is a resource for the teacher, as well as Rubistar Rubric Maker, which will also help the teachers as they make this lesson their own. So, how is this going to help? We want our students to be active. It's an experience for our students, so by having a teacher create a web quest, students are allowed to research on their own, keywords there, on their own, the dates or events, create, which is a higher level of thinking, a digital timeline so that they can then practice recalling those facts through Quizlet. So, the lesson, our objective, to familiarize students with the history of agriculture, agriculture education, and FFA. Our goals, students should have a better understanding of how modern agriculture education came to be and how far FFA has come since the founding of FFA in 1928. And for the unit, we're going to be looking at events that changed the course of either Ag Ed or the FFA organization. We're going to present this to our students as a project because that just sounds so much better than an assessment. So by the teacher creating their web quest, it allows us to explore important dates while creating the Poplet timeline. And you can actually break this project up so that each student is presenting a piece of the history so that group 1 covers this many years, 2 this many years, and over the year you have students teaching students the entire history. which I think is a unique idea. So this is an example of a web quest, and you want to verbally present to them, and especially go through what these tabs mean. Introduction is, what are we going to do and why do we need to go and study this? It really sets the scene. The task is what they're going to do. The process is how they're going to do it. Resources, where should they get their information. Evaluation, what are they going to do and how's it going to be graded. And conclusion is, what should you get from this? And then this is your page to just cite your sources and let people know where you got the information. And then students are going to go in and evaluate these resources to gather the data, which they're then going to use to make their project. And make sure that you have how-to videos and stuff for your students so they're not all asking the same questions, especially if you're not there. This keeps them from having to say, well, the sub didn't know how, so we can't do the lesson. A Poplet, that is going to be their project to work on. It's a software website that can create a timeline for them. They need to make sure they have a name and title, and they're providing accurate, detailed, complete information. Good organization doesn't mean that it's in a straight line. This has good organization. You can tell where it started and, where it's ending up. And you can make the circle. So as long as they have a good organization that you can follow, let them be creative with it. But make sure they're using their time wisely. Don't get too just out there and lose track of everything. And then make sure you provide the rubric that they're going to be graded on. That's very important to them. Being honest from the front. From there, you can also provide a Quizlet. A Quizlet is an additional studying resource. It tends to be a flashcard set. But if you look up here, this Learn actually allows students to learn in unique ways, such as writing, filling in the blanks, flipping the flashcards, and matching. And then there's also the additional options of write it, spell it. They can generate their own test to take, match, and then Gravity Game is just something kind of fun. But it makes flashcard sets where you can have the date and the event on one side, a description on the other, and then just providing various study styles that students can use if they wish. I feel it's a good way for them to study. And this is just an example that I did. It's actually for an animal science class. But the great thing about them is they can be manipulated and made for anything. So it's very versatile. How does this align with curriculum? For ag teachers, this is 1.2.3, where you're illustrating the major events in the history of FFA, and it's going to also do some ag ed. You're going to explain the significance of these dates. It's very important for students to know this, especially if they're going to run for state office. And then your ISTE standard is being a knowledge constructor. So the last thing we're going to go over is something that everyone wants to know, and that's just kind of how do we assess these students? It's not really a traditional assignment. It's not a test. And the best way is a rubric, which this is one I made using the website that I have listed earlier. And in this specific one, we went over the content. Was everything accurate and reported on the timeline? So is everything there? Fonts and colors, is it clashy? Can you read it? That also goes into the readability. Does it have a title? Are the dates correct? Did they use their time wisely? And did they understand how to use the software, or did they just ignore the video and keep asking you questions? And then if you're going to do the presentations of the class, you could add some oral presentation standards to this as well. But I did it as if they were just turning it in as a project. But the great thing about this is you can manipulate it to any need. And that's all I have for our lesson. And I think that it's going to be a more unique way to learn ag history. And hopefully your students are going to be more engaged and have more fun with it. So I wish you all the best.